maybe you say. Good.
Yeah, I'll go through some comments. Here we are, Go Birds, live at the half. Eliot Shorr-Parks joins me, Tucker Bagley, live from Raymond James Stadium, where I don't know, Elliot, not a great first half, not a good first half, not an average first half. Your big takeaway from a first half that maybe ended on somewhat of a positive note, but the first 20 minutes maybe felt like 20 hours with just how awful all three phases looked.
Yeah, so doing the pregame show, I said that this was a game they could afford to lose. You go into the bye 2-2. It's been a tough first four games with injuries and various things. What you couldn't have is this. This is what you couldn't have. To come out like this, look, let's be honest. They're lucky they're only down 20. If they come back and win this game, Todd Bowles kicking that field goal instead of going for it on fourth down, I think is going to be a very noteworthy play in the game. But look, if we're going to give Nick Sirianni credit for the fight they showed last week in New Orleans and the way they responded to it, I think he deserves some blame for how they came out in this game. I know you have no AJ. I know you have no Devontae. There's no Lane. I understand the players maybe feeling like this was going to be a tough pull, but they were a complete no-show to start that game. I mean, they almost had the fewest yards in the first half in the last 24 years. Like they had 0 yards midway through the second quarter, if not far into the second quarter. The defense, I mean, it looked way too easy. It reminded me a lot of the playoff game last year. I remember sitting in this exact press box and watching the defense get absolutely annihilated to start the game. And then on the offensive side of the ball, yes, you're missing AJ, you're missing Devontae, but it has to be better than that. And I think that type of offensive performance, that's a big picture failure. That is on Nick, that is on Kellen, and yes, that's on Jalen. Early on in that game, he had a chance to hit Saquon Barkley for what could have been a big touchdown early, and it was a horrendous throw. Like I know you're rolling. I know it's not the easiest throw in the world, but that is a throw that the other quarterbacks we like to put Jalen in the class of. That is a throw those quarterbacks make. So early on, he had that missed touchdown. Dallas Goedert had that drop pass, and things snowballed from there. So look, there's still a second half, but I thought early on, both a no-show from the team, but also some mistakes from key players really, really hurt them.
Yeah, and you don't want to go big picture, and we still have 30 minutes to go. And we can do big picture, post game and after the bye. But this is a trend for the Eagles, right? Which I think is a little bit more troubling. Is this happens a lot? This isn't,
Mm-hmm.
man. They usually come out on fire, and because of the injuries, they struggled in the first 20 minutes. No, this is something that's really happened since the beginning of last year. Is their inability to put up points and score early in games. They're the only team in the NFL that still hasn't scored a touchdown in the first quarter of this
I mean,
season.
forget a touchdown. They haven't scored a single first quarter point. Like, so the defense was really bad, no question about it. I mean, it should have been 28-0. So neither side of the ball gets defended here. But there have been times this season where the offense, in fact, every quarter, the offense has struggled early and the defense has kept it in them. Green Bay, Atlanta, New Orleans. The defense needed picked up today, and the offense didn't do it. Now, again, you don't have AJ, you don't have Devontae, you don't have Lane. That will be repeated 800,000 times over the next 2 weeks. We know that those guys weren't there, and they do matter. But there is a difference between missing those guys and playing well and whatever that was. I don't know how AJ, Devontae, and Lane, frankly, changed that. Like, maybe you have 10 or 11 points instead of 7. I mean, like, Jalen looked bad. He had pressure on him. They just looked completely unprepared to start the game.
Yeah, and you add in the muff punt on the Isaiah Rodgers pushing the defender into Cooper DeJean and that setting up. It just felt like everything sort of snowballed up until they finally got a stop about midway through the second quarter. They got their first down with 6:30 to go in the second quarter, and you look at kind of what they could possibly do in the second half. They start with the ball in the second half. They maybe have a chance to make this a little bit closer, but is there really any hope with how the offense has performed and how the defense, even though they seem to have stopped the bleeding, in the second half of that second quarter, they still dug themselves quite a huge hole.
Yeah, and I mean the other part of this, and look, I know this is maybe putting on my WIP hat here, but where is the running the ball to start the game? Going into the game, you knew that the opposing defense was bad against a run. I think they were like 24th in the league in yards per carry allowed. They were not a good run defense. And you were missing, for the 800,000th time, AJ, Devontae Smith, and Lane Johnson. but Saquon gets 2 carries in the first like quarter and a half. Now I know once you're down, it is hard to get to those running plays. You're facing second and longs, you're down big. Like I get the desire to go pass it, but you're missing your best guys in the passing game. And the other reason I think they should have ran him more early on is that defense needed a break. Like they went out so quick. I mean, I would have to look, but their average time of possession in the first half couldn't have been more than 2 or 3 minutes per possession. So I thought
Yeah,
that was a
Buccaneers won the first half time of possession 21 to 9 minutes.
right. And the Eagles had how many drives? Probably 4 or 5. So,
They had four, and obviously one of them went for quite a while, right? They had a 6 minute drive in the middle of the second quarter to get that touchdown. So before then, it was incredibly lopsided.
and I mean, this is so like looking ahead to the second half, because this is not the post game pod yet. They did not lose. But looking ahead to the second half, I mean, I understand you're down big. That leans on throw the ball. You need to score quickly. You need chunk plays. But if they can get a touchdown coming here out of the third, then all of a sudden it's 24-14. That's a 10-point game. If it was 10-0 at halftime, I don't think anybody would feel like it was completely over. So if they can get this to 10 points, get a touchdown at half, you can run the ball to a touchdown. Like even if it takes 5, 6, 7 minutes off the clock, you're only down 10 points if you're able to go and do it. So
Yeah,
I would come out.
I think the
Run the ball.
frustrating thing is, they haven't been an explosive offense really with AJ Brown and Devontae Smith on the field, and now you take those two guys off the field, and you're missing your two most explosive players, save for Saquon Barkley, and trying to come back from a 17-point deficit is tough when you're capable of producing explosive plays, and it doesn't seem like they necessarily have the personnel to do
So
that right now.
I got a question for you because you're better at this type of stuff than I am. But the decision not to go for two after the touchdown, you're down 24-0. That's a 3 possession game, 3 touchdowns and 3 2-point conversions. Do you think Nick should have gone for two there? But I think the more concerning question would be: do you think Nick even considered going for two there?
I don't know if you should have. I think from a moral standpoint, right? Like that touchdown felt like a huge moral victory. Jalen Hurts made a really good play rolling out. He found Paris Campbell in the back of the end zone. I don't know. Do you kind of lose all momentum if you go for it and you get stopped? Because remember, they had 2 shots trying to run the ball in from the 2 with Saquon Barkley and got stuffed both times before they tried rolling out on fourth down there. So in my mind, I would certainly consider. I don't know if Nick even considered it, but it is something to discuss. But if you don't get it with how much time is left, there's still 35 minutes left in the game or whatever it was. I guess it was after the 2-minute warning. So you still had a half to go. I don't know if it's necessarily worth it, and then you're trying to chase points and catch up if you don't get it. Because if you don't get it, then you're going for 2 again on the next touchdown.
Yeah.
And considering how kind of much of a struggle it's been for this offense, I don't know if you want to try and push it, too
fair.
far this early.
I think the part about you finally got some momentum, finish the drive with the extra point.
Because you're right, like the math makes sense.
The math is there to go for two. I'd be curious to know what the analytic guys were either telling him or thought about that decision to kick the extra point. But I do want to give Jalen one piece of credit though, and trust me, nobody deserves any type of A or anything for that first half. But I thought the play on the touchdown was nice. I mean, watching that live, it felt like that was a broken play. Like it didn't feel like that's what they wanted to have happen. He had a defender in his face, stood there, obviously outside the pocket, and got the ball to Paris Campbell. So I thought that was a good play by him.
Yeah, there's still flashes with Jalen, right? I mean, he's only 7 of 15, 49 yards. Not a good first half by any stretch of the imagination.
A really bad half. Let's keep.
But he makes a play like that. The scramble he had on third down to convert their first down in the game. Like he still shows flashes at times where he can be a quality, productive quarterback. But as we wrap up here, Eliot, anything you're looking for in the second half of today's game?
Yeah, I think this is about salvaging it. Like, I think at this point, the chances of them winning it are probably pretty slim. Obviously, if they do win, that would be an outstanding way to go into the bye. But you get the ball to start the third quarter, go down, get some points. You can get it to 14 or potentially 10, depending what you do. And then, the pressure's back on the Buccaneers. The defense has improved as the game has gone on somewhat. A little bit of that is Buccaneers drops, but ultimately the defense held it together a little bit there towards the end. So if you can get this game where 5-6 minutes to go in the fourth, it's a close game. Look, I know the beginning of the game is what people will talk about, and a loss is a loss, but this is about a pride. This is like pride in the second half. Like, go out there, try to make this a close game, see if you can put the pressure on the Bucs, and see what happens.
Yeah, and one last injury update. Reed Blankenship questionable to return. And so I guess he got hurt at the end of the
So
first half there.
he has an illness. It's unclear what that is. It is very, very hot out there, so you wonder if maybe that's involved in it. But yeah, Tristan McCullum in at safety there with CJ.
Yeah, so probably maybe just the heat, some exhaustion. They were on, as I said earlier, on the field for 20 minutes. That'll wrap it up for us. Please, stick around, hang out for the post game pod. Elliot and James will be live right here on our YouTube channel to discuss everything that you see, over the final 30 minutes of the game. And for Elliot, I'm Tucker. I guess it doesn't really sound as good, but we will talk to you guys later.